Yes, well, I've been teaching for the last 15 or so years, mostly in Yonkers, and have recently, in the last year, left my teaching to pursue an MFA in theater arts at Sarah Lawrence College. First experience with Purchase College was in my undergrad taking some lit classes, which were very interesting. And then anyway, I went to teaching in Yonkers and was doing some simple Shakespeare basic performances with my students, and they kind of started to get bigger and bigger. And somehow or another, I believe I received a mailing about the Children's Shakespeare Festival here, which was very intriguing to me, not only because my students would participate in that, but because there was training for the teachers, and of course, you know, always looking to broaden my own horizons, and also find a way for my kids to be recognized for their efforts and their accomplishments. Well, first of all, you were able to meet with people who were really entrenched in the arts, which was very interesting because my background, although I had always been interested in it, I had not ever pursued a theater degree of any form. So it was just really my passion that kind of led me to it. So to come in and work with people who were professionally doing this was very exciting. From basic things, just like exploring text and coming up with resources for things and how things were cut so that you could use them with students, to silly things like warm-up exercises and things that could get the kids moving and energized and ready for the moment of performing, to actually having to act myself, which, although it was minimal, was taking me out of my comfort zone, which was very interesting because it helped me understand really what some of my students might have been feeling who were out of their comfort zone. And I have to say, in the last year that I was with the festival, there were a lot of tapes shown of shows that the professional artists had worked on with students they had been working with, and to see the different ideas and the simple, low-budget ways that wonderful things were occurring as a public school teacher was great, because obviously we're working on minimal budgets. So any way to find magic inexpensively is always great. Absolutely. So let me say, for reading and writing alone, when we would start studying the Shakespeare plays or whatever text we would be working on, we would always pull out vocabulary that we didn't know, things we weren't familiar with. And we would end up wrapping the classroom walls in posters of all of the words that we didn't know, and they would become our working vocabulary. So we would use those during the week in basic dictionary work, but beyond that, in using them. And I would tell them all the time, use it or lose it. If you want to understand the play, we've got to use it. So they would have to use the words during the week, and they would receive, you know, crystals, crystal jars, stickers, whatever, any sort of positive reinforcement showing that they were actively using the word in sentences. They would do it for homework. We would do sentence stretching games where we would learn how to really expand a basic sentence into something very impressive. So they would have to use the vocabulary from Shakespeare and creating sentences that had at least 10 words. And we would sometimes take that to extreme levels and just fill the entire board with this ridiculous run-on sentence. But just to show how you could continue using adjectives based on the play we'd been reading, if it was comedy or tragedy, to take this one word and really make some unbelievable thing out of it. And ultimately, they would start using those in stories, and they would use them in character responses. You know, how does Romeo feel about Juliet, or what does the ghost really want to tell Hamlet, and vice versa. And letter writing. I mean, it was addressing all of the learning standards for ELA. And I have to say, working with a economically diverse population, I think that it helped level the playing field in a lot of ways, because it was something fun and interactive that they were working together as a team. So they were really needing to support each other for the goal to come out to the best extent. And I really feel that it helped with attendance, because they were so excited to participate in the silly sentences on the board, to the standing on their chair and reciting to be or not to be, to doing it on stage, to knowing ultimately they were going to go to a college and perform in a children's Shakespeare festival. I mean, it really was a big deal. It was a big deal to me. It was a big deal to them. It was an unbelievable experience. My true opinion about an outside art center is, at the moment, I think public school education, in my experience, is not so focused on the arts. Obviously, we all know when there are budget cuts, arts are first things to go, in sports. And in all reality, there is a huge emphasis on standardized testing and test prep and all of these things to measure benchmarks. And I think because schools and states are so focused on that aspect of education, they're not remembering that the arts are very much there. So for an outside center that is focused on that, that can really, that is the blood running through them, to come in and spread that kind of joy for learning, for the purpose of art and learning, instead of a standardized test, to me is infinitely meaningful and valuable. I don't know that there is much perception at this point, honestly. I don't know that it's on the radar so much. Not because they wouldn't want it to be, because I think ultimately in the ideal situation, any school district would want to have all of these things involved. But I think unfortunately with all of the budget cuts and the shift in what's really important in education right now, with all the testing, I think it really has just taken it out of view. It's taken arts out of view. My experience is that the arts not only helped, and specifically the Children's Shakespeare Festival and everything that I've done in my classroom, obviously has fostered a love of learning, which for me, the split in education for me right now is that I can understand the need for the standardized testing to some extent, but my concern as a teacher is that I am not fostering a love of learning. When my students are having to go through test preparation and the anxieties, and not just the students, but the parents and the teachers and the administrators. I mean, it goes through everybody, this anxiety over these tests. This is not fostering a love of learning in my eyes. It's creating a very tense, pressured experience where, to me, I almost feel like the learning stops once the test has been taken. I don't think the students are invested in the learning other than knowing that they're going to get a 1, 2, 3, or a 4 on a test.